For centuries, humans and mages lived peacefully together. But one day, Mordred, the leader of the mages, wanted more power. He sent his army to attack the kingdom of Camelot. Hundreds of mages, along with giant war beasts, stormed the kingdom despite their bravery. Camelot's defenses couldn't hold. Prince Vortigern, feeling sick from the magic around him, told his brother King Uther to surrender, but Uther refused. With his legendary sword Excalibur in hand, Uther faced Mordred and defeated him with the sword's power. After the battle, Uther held a council meeting to decide what to do about the mages. Sir Bedivere and Sir William argued that the mages weren't bad people, only Mordred was. They reminded Uther that Merlin, a mage, had given him Excalibur, and that even Vortigern had studied with the mages. Uther agreed to stop any aggression against the mages, although Vortigern was not happy about it. That night Vortigern took drastic action. He gathered his men and led his wife to a secret underground room. There, he sacrifices his wife for some kind of power to defeat anyone. As his soldiers began to take over the castle, Uther woke his wife and their baby son Arthur to escape through the docks. But a demon knight found them and killed both Uther's wife and him. Baby Arthur escaped in a boat drifting down the river to Londinium. The boat was found by Lucy and her friends, who were sex workers. They took in little Arthur, and he grew up in their workhouse. Believing he was the illegitimate son of one of the women, Arthur was often bullied by the other kids, so he asked the kung fu master named George to teach him how to fight. Arthur became street smart, defending the sex workers from aggressive customers. He got involved in the local crime scenes, saving his money in a secret spot on the wall, waiting for the day he could afford a good life. By the time he became an adult, Arthur had risen to become the neighborhood's crime boss. However, he was haunted by nightmares of the demon knight and a dying woman at the docks. Meanwhile, Vortigern ruled the kingdom with an iron fist, pouring resources into building a massive tower. One morning, the water surrounding the castle receded, revealing Excalibur, the legendary sword. Stuck in a rock, soldiers tried to pull it out, but none succeeded. Worried, Vortigern visited the moat hags, reminding them of the sacrifice he made for power. The hags told him that balance was inevitable. As one side of power grew, so must the other. They warned him that to stop the sword, he must find and eliminate Arthur. Back in Londinium, Arthur surprised Lucy with some money he had taken from a man who had hit her. Lucy was impressed, especially since the man was a Viking known for their danger. Just then, Jack and a group of royal guards arrived at the brothel, searching for a rebel who had attacked the king's properties. Although Arthur disliked the king, he didn't want to endanger the women he cared about. When he found William hiding in the house, he handed him over to the guards. Jack then asked for a private meeting with Arthur and his childhood friends, Tristan and Backlack. Wanting to know more about what was happening, Arthur explained that he had taken money from the Vikings because they had mistreated Lucy and George, and insisted that his team hadn't used violence. Jack also inquired about the graffiti around town, announcing the return of the Born King. Backlack promised that he had told his son Blue to stop the graffiti. Despite their assurances, Jack remained having doubts and warned Arthur to be careful, as the Vikings were under the king's protection. A few days later, Vortigern checks in with his guard Mercia about the sword. Unfortunately, no one in the royal army has been able to lift it. Mercia is worried because the rebels are growing stronger, and the people are starting to hate Vortigern. The king then asks Maggie, a lady of his court, about the people's opinion of him. Maggie secretly works with the resistance and lies, telling him the people love their king. Satisfied with her answer, Vortigern orders Mercia to focus on finishing the tower. In the middle of the night, Arthur is woken by his friends, who warn him that the royal guards are coming for him. He tries to escape, but is captured on the streets and taken back to Camelot. At the harbor, there's a long line for the test, so Arthur cuts in to avoid waiting. As soon as he grabs the sword with both hands, the entire kingdom begins to shake and the runes on the sword glow. To everyone's surprise, Arthur pulls the sword from the rock, but the power overwhelms him and he passes out. Arthur wakes up in a cell with Vortigern standing over him. He tells Arthur that the sword proves he's Uther's son, but Arthur denies it, insisting he's just a sex worker's bastard who wants nothing to do with this. However, Vortigern has already sent his men to investigate the brothel and finds Arthur's hidden money, revealing his ambition for power and making him a threat to the throne. Meanwhile, in the rebels' hideout, Rubio brings a mage sent by Merlin to guide Arthur. She needs Bedivere's help to reach the castle. Soon, the people of Camelot gather around the castle to see the born king. Vortigern plans to use this opportunity to gain their respect through fear, and Arthur must play along. If Arthur doesn't surrender his power to Vortigern, the king's guards will kill Lucy. When Arthur and Vortigern appear in front of the public, Arthur is given a chance to grab Excalibur and defend himself. But thinking of the safety of his friends, he turns it down. The crowd calls him a disruptor of peace and he is sentenced to die for the kingdom's sake. Just as the guards are about to kill Arthur, the mage sends an eagle to disrupt them, causing all the horses and dogs to go wild. The crowd starts running in panic, and the guards focus on protecting the king. This chaos gives Bedivere and the rebels the opportunity to rescue Arthur and retrieve Excalibur. As the working girls escape, Arthur fights off the guards alongside the rebels and the mage. In the midst of the chaos, 2 rebels are killed, but the rest manage to escape by jumping into a river. Eventually, they reach the rebels' hideout, where Arthur is surprised to find that William has escaped arrest and made it there too. Bedivere and William inform Arthur that his neighborhood has been torched and he can't go back. They also want to see what he can do with the sword. Arthur pretends he doesn't want to fight, but when he begins sparring with the rebels, he easily defeats them. When it's William's turn, Arthur grabs Excalibur with both hands, and his mind is flooded with visions, causing him to pass out again. Hours later, Arthur wakes up from his usual nightmares, this time triggered by the mage performing a ritual to understand the sword. The nightmare shows his younger self handing the sword to Uther, explaining the scars on his hands. The mage tells him he is resisting the sword, but Arthur denies it, saying he isn't the legendary king they need. However, he agrees to give it a chance when the mage points out she can help rid him of the nightmares. Afterward, the mage asks Bedivere to take Arthur to the Darklands. Arthur is dropped off on an island, where the mage tells him he must reach the tower and touch the altar stone with the sword. Thinking it will be like camping, Arthur isn't too worried. But once he is left alone, he discovers the island is full of terrifying creatures. Forced to use the sword to defend himself, Arthur fights and kills any monster that crosses his path. After several days of raw survival, Arthur finally reaches the top of an old tower and places the sword on the altar stone. Immediately the stone glows and all the beasts are scared away. The magic takes over Arthur's mind, revealing the night his family died. The demon knight killed the queen, prompting Uther to attack with Excalibur. During the fight, Uther dropped the sword and young Arthur handed it back. Before being told to run, Arthur boarded a boat, closing his eyes to avoid seeing his father's death. Excalibur fell into Uther's body, turning him into the stone that took the sword underwater. The demon knight lifted his magical veil, revealing the sinister face of Vortigern, who transformed into the demon from powers obtained from the moat hags. Arthur passes out and is rescued by Bedivere and the mage. Arthur realizes that the tower on the island is like the one Vortigern is building in Camelot. The mage explains that Vortigern will become as powerful as Mordred when the tower is finished, which is why the sword appeared now. Bedivere reveals Vortigern started the war against the mages, making a deal with Mordred to share power if he killed Uther. Mordred agreed, killed the Mage King, and took the royal staff to the tower to unleash dark forces. However, Merlin later stole the staff, made Excalibur with it, and destroyed the tower. He then gave Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake, binding it to Uther's bloodline. When they return to the hideout, Arthur's friends inform him that their neighborhood was burned down by Jack and Mercia while searching for him. They managed to rescue some working girls and friends, but most people fled. This enrages Arthur, who vows to kill Vortigern for revenge. Afterward, Arthur introduces his friends to the rebels and they begin planning. William suggests meeting with the kingdom's most influential barons for support, but Arthur refuses. He believes those high lords would never accept a poor, uneducated leader like him, insisting the rebels must lead the charge. Instead, Arthur proposes luring Vortigern out of his castle and into Londinium by targeting what he values most. The tower. They start by sinking barges carrying stone supplies and blocking the river. Using William's intel on the king's transportation routes, they rescue children being used as slaves. A working lady with connections to Vortigern's favorite palace helps them blow it up by sabotaging the brandy supply. This forces Vortigern to strike a desperate deal with the Vikings. Despite the shady terms, the Vikings, aware of the rumors about the born king, express concern over Vortigern's tower being weakened. Desperate to regain control, Vortigern calls a meeting with all the barons in Londinium and retreats to the tower to increase his powers. Soon after, Maggie arrives at the hideout with news of Vortigern's meeting, inspiring the rebels to plan his assassination during his visit. To execute their plan, they need a safe standpoint. William demonstrates his archery skills by proving he can kill from 175 yards, solidifying their strategy. When the day arrives, Arthur watches the king approach in a carriage, feeling worried about how easy it seems. It's a trap. Vortigern is hiding on a boat with Maggie, aware she's been spying on him and using her to set this up. Arthur realizes the king on the street is an actor, but William shoots anyway to kill Marcia. The guards raise the alarm and start searching for the rebels. Arthur's group tries to blend into the crowd, but the guards find them, leading to a fierce battle. Daclac is injured and urges them to go on without him. The group fights through the streets and Rubio gets hurt too, staying behind to distract the guards. They sneak into George's school, which has a secret tunnel for escape. However, everyone there decides to stand and fight. Instead of running, the guards burst in and a massive battle occurs. The mage commands her birds to help, but her plan fails and she is captured. Enraged, Arthur grabs Excalibur with both hands and defeats the entire army in seconds with its power, a display of force that startled people from their windows. Afterward, the rebels hide in a safe house, waiting until dark for Daclac and Blue. Meanwhile, riots break out as word of Arthur's power spreads, but Arthur still hesitates to lead. Hours later, Blue arrives with a dying Daclac, who urges Arthur to leave without him. Arthur drags Blue away just before Vortigern and his guards arrive. Having tracked them to the safe house, Daclac pretends to know nothing but Blue, unwilling to abandon his father, returns pretending to be a cleaner who knows nothing. Vortigern doesn't believe him and cuts Daclac's ear, causing Blue to scream. Arthur returns, threatening a guard, prompting Vortigern to kill Daclac. This distraction allows Arthur to grab Blue and escape to the boats, ensuring the rebels' safe getaway. Vortigern orders his guards to capture or kill any rebels on the streets. Back at the hideout, Arthur reflects on the lives lost because of him and decides to throw the sword into the lake and flee. The Lady of the Lake finds the sword and pulls Arthur into her lair, showing him a vision of Camelot in ruins under Vortigern's rule. Arthur finally accepts the sword. The lady reminds him to fight Vortigern in the tower and to trust the mage when the rebels find Arthur. He is roaring with the power of the glowing sword. Guys, I urge you to subscribe so that we can continue creating more amazing movie recaps together. Meanwhile, Vortigern captures and tortures Rubio until he reveals information. Soon after, Arthur learns that riots are spreading across the country in his name. Determined, Arthur declares he's ready to storm the castle, and the rebels return to their hideout to prepare. To their horror, they find a massacre and a royal guard with a message from Vortigern. Arthur must come to the castle before dark or Blue and the mage will be killed. Bedivere volunteers to go, ensuring the hostages are alive. Vortigern agrees to exchange Excalibur for the mage and to wait for Arthur until morning. Once the mage is reunited with the rebels, she decides it's time to awaken Arthur's inner power. She summons a snake to bite Arthur's neck, and its poison allows him to see all the magical creatures hidden in nature. The mage also assures him that this poison will protect him later. A few hours later, Arthur arrives at the castle. As the mage's eagle drops a snake inside, Arthur is brought before Vortigern, who, just as he is about to kill Arthur, notices the snake on a pillar. Vortigern kills the snake, but accidentally gets the sword stuck in the stone, unable to take it out. At that moment, the mage sends a giant snake into the castle, and the beast slaughters all the guards, while Arthur retrieves Excalibur. Meanwhile, in the streets, the rebels free all the prisoners, igniting the riots once more. Desperate for more power, Vortigern approaches the hags and is reminded of the price he must pay. With no other choice, Vortigern kills his daughter, crying in agony, then brings her body to the hags and transforms back into the demon knight. Outside, Arthur battles every guard in his way, easily defeating them with the power of Excalibur. The guards, terrified, drop their weapons and let him pass. As the rebels take over the castle, Arthur enters the tower where Excalibur reacts to the magic, teleporting him to the top where Vortigern awaits. A fierce battle occurs. Vortigern, empowered by his sacrifice, quickly overpowers Arthur. As Vortigern claims the sword is his, the poison in Arthur's veins triggers another vision. This time, Arthur doesn't close his eyes. When Uther dies, he grabs the sword before it sinks into his father's body. Uther tells Arthur the sword is now his. Arthur awakens to find Excalibur glowing with power. He grabs it and fights Vortigern again, now with better control of the sword's powers. Arthur strikes Vortigern repeatedly with all his might, and newfound motivation finally killing him. He points out that he became who he is now, only because Vortigern sent him to the streets to make his point. Even more ironic, Arthur kisses Vortigern's hand. Arthur activates Excalibur's magic, causing the entire tower to crumble. The next day the kingdom mourns the lives lost during the war. Arthur reveals the round table for their meetings and asks Bedivere to knight his friends. William then knights Arthur, officially making him king. Later, when the Vikings demand their part of the deal, threatening war, Arthur reminds them of his power, causing them to kneel and accept him as the new king of England and an ally. In front of a huge crowd, Bedivere crowns Arthur, who raises his sword and swears to protect his people. And that's the end of the movie.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and leave a comment. See you in the next video.